Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I am in Apex, and I am making a sequel to a video I made close to 19 months ago, reviewing Apex guns on a tier list based system. The game is very different, as you can see if you go back and rewatch that one. But that one, well, I'm in the training range right now. Training range did not exist back in the day. I had to play the tutorial over again midway through. Now, there's more guns in the game. The guns are in different categories. You can add hop-ups in the range now, pick up body armor and such. There's a lot more to do. But I figured I might as well hop right into this. So this is kind of like my tier list video. I'd say the worst of the light guns. Let me grab some extra light ammo. It's probably the P2020. If you hit some headshots, you can probably one-clip someone with purple armor. Yeah, nobody's gonna be hitting those kinds of shots in a real game, though. So I wouldn't count on it. This gun's okay. Only time I'd ever use it is if I had hammer points. This is how I would deck it out. It'll do pretty big damage. I don't know, my aim ain't the best right now. This gun, you can fire it a lot faster. I can't control it that fast, but that's I wouldn't really hardly ever use it. My next gun of choice, like second worst I should say, would be the Re. Pretty good. Pretty easy recoil control. I mean, pretty consistent. Hip fire is pretty accurate. Fast firing, not bad. I just don't really ever use it past the early game. Alternator, this is the first gun in the category where I might pick this up mid-game. I don't know if I want to be going to late game with an alternator. With it decked, it's actually pretty good. I kind of like the 1 to 2 variable in this thing. Well, actually digital threat's probably the best in this, but once you get this thing fully decked, it can do some serious damage. I mean, that's pretty good. It's consistent. Obviously, these guys aren't like real moving players in a game. But yeah, I'd pick that one second. And then these next three guns, G7 Scout, R99, R3. They're all reversible. I mean, if I plan on playing a mid-range, like mid-up close range, R301, very consistent, very good AR choice. I really like this one. And then it's probably tied with the R99. These are probably right below the G7 Scout. This thing absolutely shreds when you're good with it. I used to pick this up all the time, but I aim for a more consistent shooting weapon, like the G7 Scout. This is my favorite one. I mean, this thing shreds. It's good from quite a bit of ranges. A lot of people like the 3 times. I like the 2 to 4. And it'll shoot like this. That's pretty good, consistent, distant range. I'm not a huge fan of the double tap, but I don't really use it ever. So I'd go last, second to last, middle of the road, just okay weapon. And then these two are both really good. Pick them up often, and then this one is a must-pick some games for me. I really like it. Alright, I'll reset. Go on to the heavy guns here in a moment. Alright guys, we are on to the heavy guns. This is probably my favorite category of guns overall. All of these guns are pretty okay. They all kind of got their niches. Wingman. This one, if I'm on having a good aiming day, I love to pick this one up. It will absolutely shred. It's very hard to hit shots with though, so you gotta be careful. I like the sight on it, but you can't really add much to make this puppy better. Just add a heavy mag and a skull piercer. There we go. See? It's hard to hit your shots with this thing, but once you hit them, it's pretty good. Spitfire. This one, pretty good off the ground. I mean, at the early part of the game, this gun can do some serious damage without any hop-ups. But once you get the stuff on this thing, some people like the 3 times, this one. I kind of like 3 times in this too, because it'll be a mid-range beast. Most of the time I run the 1-2. When people get my face and I still want to use this thing, I still use it. I pick this up less often than the Wingman though. So this is probably my least used heavy gun, and then the Wingman would be second. This one, I use this one the second most or most, kind of tied with the flatline. I use them both. I love the Hemlock and the flatline. They're the 2 best ARs in the game. Very consistent. Big damage. Hits hard. Same thing with the flatline. Absolutely shreds. I'd highly recommend these 2. These are my 2 favorite ARs. Ahead of the R301 and the G7 Scout, I'd pick these 2. But over them, both. I'd go probably, if I had to pick an order, I'd go Flatline, then Hemlock, then G7, then R3 for my AR slot. And then the Parrot, I usually pick an SMG, but that's it for the heavy guns. So, once again, first, second, third, fourth. Right, catch you guys in the snipers. The sniper class. This is an interesting class. There's 4 different guns. The Sentinel. This is kind of the hard-hitting one of the bunch. 140 headshot damage, 70 body damage. It's pretty good. I don't really pick this up that much. I don't use snipers that often. If you pick up a couple of shield cells, and then you can, if you have 2 shield cells, you can charge this weapon. And now it'll hit big damage. 176 to the head, 88 to the body. So this thing hits pretty hard. I mean, the attachments just make it easier to see and stabilize. Charge rifle. Boy, this thing's like the worst gun in the game, in my opinion. If you're a good shot with it, it's okay. I mean, at best. You can't ever use it up close. Like if you try to non-ADS with this thing, not the worst. Well, it is the worst. Other than the only time I'd ever pick this thing up is if I have a Mozambique and a P2020. Oh, I might even pick the Mozambique over this thing. Once again, the attachments on these guns don't really matter that much. They just make it a little bit more stable. But longbow, 110 headshot. With the skull piercer though, it will hit much harder. 138. So that's nice headshot damage. 55. Decent rate of fire. I would pick this one up over the I'd pick the Sentinel over the longbow, but I'd pick the longbow over the charge rifle. My favorite of the bunch is the triple take, in my opinion. It's pretty decent. Well, up like this, if someone gets in your face, can make a pretty decent, like, shotgun. But it has the choke automatically on it now, so it'll scope in. Hit 138 headshot, which is pretty good. Body shot, 69. Funny number. No. But you can fire it pretty quickly too. It can fire really quickly. And the bolts will be spread out. This is my favorite. The triple take. And then I would take the sentinel, and then I'd take the longbow, and then last charge rifle. But in general, I don't pick these guys up that much. Once again, the attachments don't really matter. It just makes you zoom in a little bit farther. But I'll catch you guys for the energy guns. Alright guys, we're back. We're over here at the energy weapons. One of my favorite classes. My second favorite class probably after the heavy weapons. But they've got good guns all around. I would say I pick up an energy weapon a third of the games I play. Most of the time it's a Volt, and the other time it's an L-Star. They're both really good weapons. I would take the Volt over the L-Star, but if I know it's kind of a scarce game and I'm not going to be able to get much hop-ups, like, if I know I can get all these hop-ups, I'll take the Volt any day of the week. Really good. Really good. The perfect SMG to me. If I'm going to pick an SMG, which I usually do, I almost always take this one over the R99 in most circumstances, but another not bad. I know it's an LMG, but I use it as an SMG most of the time. Pretty good up close. You can hip fire it pretty easily, which I like about it. Doesn't take many attachments. It's a big plus to me. I usually pick one of these or one of the shotgun or a shotgun most of the time. Sometimes I pick up these guys. Not often. Only time I pick them up is with the turbocharger, because especially with the devotion, it's hard to control and it just takes so many attachments to make this thing really amazing. But it's still a really good gun nonetheless. Same thing with the Havoc. I haven't been using this one that much as of lately. The recoil pattern is pretty hard to control, but this thing's a truck with the turbocharger. Even without it, it's really good. But you want to be hitting headshots with these guns. They do big headshot damage. Especially things like the Volt and the L-Star. Even like if you're hitting headshots with this L-Star, it'll wreck. See how much damage it did there? Like, it'll do 18 to the body, 36 to the head. That's a lot of damage. So, all these guns, very good. I would go Volt most games, almost always Volt, and then L-Star second, and then these guys are kind of niche picks that I'll use sometimes, but I really like them both. On to the shotguns and the mythic weapons. Alright guys, the last two categories I'm going to combo them into one. These guys, the mythics, and then the shotguns. This is pretty quick. I recommend picking the mythics up all the time. I mean, the Peacekeeper will absolutely shred if you're good with it. Just pick it up every time. No, really easy decision. Same thing with the Prowler. Some people prefer it in the burst. Bang, easy 3-tap, or the full auto is really popular too. Both these guns, there's not a scenario that I can think of where I really don't pick one of these guys up. Maybe the Kraber is kind of niche if you're in an endgame scenario where you can snipe. One shots everything no matter what. Really simple. Recommend picking up all these guns. Alright, well, catch you over at the shotguns. Alright, last but not necessarily least, I mean, these are the shotguns. I don't use them. Oh, I use them quite often, but there's one I use the most. Mozambique, full auto, pistol. Shoots pretty slow. You kind of need a shotgun bolt with this thing to be able to use it. See, it'll do quite a bit more there. The only time I would ever think about using the Mozambique is also with the hammer point. If you get this thing fully kitted out, it will wreck someone. This thing's hard to aim with. For me, I really struggle to aim with it, so I don't pick it up that much. The Eva, pretty good weapon. I mean, some prefer it over the Mastiff. I personally don't. It's also full auto. It's extremely close range compared to the Mastiff. This thing is like, with the purple shotgun bolt, it isn't bad. If I'm gonna use this thing, if I get the double tap and then, well, scope doesn't really matter that much. This is how I'll use it, just like that. With the double tap, I really like this thing with the double tap. But from far away, it's not very good. I mean, one clip will kill someone from semi-decent mid-range. And then there's the Mastiff. This is my preferred shotgun of choice. I pick this one up the most because just consistent damage when people get close. You can hit people pretty hard. The real life test is a lot better than this phony test here, because it's a lot. You actually hit your shots a lot easier with this thing. It's a lot easier to hit shots with the Mastiff than the Eva, in my opinion, in a real game. So I would pick I'd pick the Mastiff 90% of the time. 9% of the time the Eva, and then 1% of the time Mozambique. I hardly ever use it. But yeah, that's my review of all the guns. So I will reiterate here. So let me get rid of the shotgun stuff. So if I had to make a tier list, my top 5 guns, my very favorite gun in the whole game, I would go Volt.
Volt SMG here.
It's my favorite gun. I picked that one up the most out of any gun. Then my second, let me think of this. Yeah, probably then the Flatline. Then third would be the Hemlock. Then fourth, I would go R301. Fifth, I would go G7. I know I said I liked the G7 better than the R3, but it depends the loadout I'm using. They're kind of a horse apiece. And then also tie the R99 in there. And then I'll pick up the Wingman sometimes. All the snipers I wouldn't have as my top 5 anything. Oh, the Mastiff. Mastiff would probably be around the 5th too. But most of the time if I pick up a Volt, I won't pick up a Mastiff. But if I don't find a Volt, I'll take a Mastiff. And then an R99, I'd say, actually. So, if I'm going to pick close range, top 3 close range, Volt 1, Mastiff 2, R99 3. If I'm going to pick mid to close, I would take the Flatline as 1, the L-Star is 2, the R301 is 3. And then if I was going to do mid-range, I'd pick probably also the Hemlock, and then the Wingman, and then the Hemlock, G7 Wingman would probably be a little bit better, and then long range, I'll pick up triple take most of the time. I don't mind using the other 3, but I don't really use them that much. And the Spitfire's okay at mid, don't really use it that much. Don't hardly ever use the alternator rear P20. And Havoc, if I get a turbocharger, I'll use it, or I'll use it early game, but I usually replace it with the Volt. And then the other 2 shotguns I don't hardly ever use. So that's my updated tier list 18 months later. The game's definitely changed. If you go back and watch the other one, you can see how very different the game was back then. So, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. See ya.